Welcome to Doing the Charleston, Evaluating the Conference's Enduring Legacy. I'm Charles Watkinson. I'm facilitating in collaboration with my father, Anthony Watkinson, who you can see on this slide. Until a couple of days ago, maybe one of the longest serving members of the directors of the Charleston Conference. And we also have with us Eleanor Cook from East Carolina University, George Matrovec from the Colorado Alliance of Research Libraries, and when he arrives, we'll also have Steve Sutton from Ingram Library Services. And the first question I have for you is, could you put your hands up if you've been to the Charleston Conference 5 or more times? Okay, very good. What about 10 or more times? Ooh. What about 15 or more times? Oh my gosh. What about 20 or more times? Oh my gosh. What about 25 or more times? Oh, okay, well that's still pretty impressive. 25 or more?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we chose the right speaker. So just to explain, so this is a session that comes out of a project that's been running for the last year or more, and it's called, this project is called the Doing the Charleston Initiative. And at the time that the Charleston Conference has made a very marked change, it has this particular moment in time where Katina Straup's original conference has now moved on to being owned and run by annual reviews. Katina thought it would be really interesting to try and record a history of the conference, and she committed to writing a book, and Doing the Charleston is a paperback book and also an open access book, and it's now, as of a couple of days ago, an audio book. And connected to this book, she felt it would be really interesting to do some interviews with people who'd attended the conference and also put up materials connected to the conference, such as the conference programs. And so over the last year, Anthony has done over 40 hours of interviews with 84 individuals, and he's going to reflect on some of the themes that come out of those. And also with Eleanor's help, we've actually got over 3,000 pages online, open access, associated with this book of conference programs and other materials from the conference. And I really wanted to thank, as sort of the publisher of this book through Against the Grain Press, Anthony himself, Leah Hines, the conference director, Darrell W. Gunter, who's the co-author with Katina of the book, one of the readers as well, and Liz Weiss, who worked on the book with Katina, and Eleanor, of course, for her work on the conference programs. Steve, come and join us up here in this. So you will, if you go to the URL on here, and the slides are also on Hoover, you'll be able to download a copy of the book. And this is the list of 84 individuals who kindly gave up their time to talk about the meeting. And I will note that this is hardly a comprehensive list. So many people have been touched by the meeting, but it is, as far as we could work out, a fairly representative sample of publishers, librarians, and others, you know, vendors, consultants, etc. We aimed for some gender diversity, a range of types of institutions, some geographical variety, and a little bit of mixed experiences, some recent, some longer attendees. And I think what we ended up with is actually a really interesting document, which is a history of a conference that has been absolutely the heart of scholarly communication for the last 45 years, and therefore is a little bit of a kind of a history of scholarly communication itself. And that is really what Katina wanted, because she wanted not to really write a memoir as much as an observation on trends and future directions in our industry. So with this, I'd like to turn to Anthony, because he's gone through all the interviews. Having done the interviews, he's gone through all the transcripts, and he's identified 5 themes that are going to actually, have arisen from this. So, Anthony, can you pick up the microphone. Let's see if it's on as well.
Hello, hello. This is the result of giving 84 interviews, and it's just some general thoughts about these interviews. So the first thing was the conference was seen by most interviewees as uniquely collaborative, but some naughty people pondered if it was always welcoming, especially for new attendants, especially from those outside the US. So the second thing, the conference was very educational, mainly for librarians, but potentially also for publishers and vendors. So that was the second thought. Katina's leadership was seen as essential, mainly for librarians, but potentially also for publishers and vendors. Of course, it isn't essential, but it's very important. The conference, the City of Charleston provides a unique atmosphere conducive to success, but there was some concern about how this character could be preserved as local franchises. For example, Charleston Asia were being developed. To me, my mind, Charleston is essential, but that's the way I see it. But there's a good balance between the big picture and operational topics in the conference, though some felt the conference did not have as many nuts and bolts sessions about acquiring ebooks, for example, as they would like. I felt this at the time when I did the interviewing, but now I feel it's moving in the right direction. I felt, the last few days, going to the sessions, I felt they were beginning to be more nuts and bolty, which I think is a good thing. So that was my thoughts. Reading through the stuff, I got it all in my case. And I just wanted to raise this question. I've allowed 5 minutes. I've almost got there, I think. And I want to now turn to people who've been actually among the interviewees who are the particularly clever and impressive ones. So here's the first one here.
Okay, so what happened next after Anthony had worked out these themes is we sat in a pub in Northumberland.
Yes.
And we sat down and we came up with 5 questions. And in the spirit of Katina's constant questioning, constant self-examination of the space of the scholarly communication, these questions are a little bit challenging. They're not assuming an altogether beautiful, happy, delightful conference all the time, but they have some critiques in them. So if you could, Anthony, can you pass that microphone to George? And there's a microphone here. And I wanted to first ask the question that comes out of Anthony's observations. Many respondents talked about Charleston as collaborative. Do you see the conference as a space for true collaboration? Or is collaboration just a word used by vendors to make selling more palatable and by libraries to be more effective in negotiation? George, would you like to start?
Sure. I'm George Makovic, Executive Director at the Colorado Alliance of Research Libraries, so I'll present sort of a consortial perspective. And I started coming in 1999, and so I've passed the 25-year mark now, but by the time I even came, it was already about 18 years old, so I was still a newcomer. I do feel it's collaborative more than most other library conferences because vendors, publishers, and librarians talk together. But, I also feel that I understand that we're buying things. It's a symbiotic relationship. The publishers and vendors need us, and we need you. So I take the collaboration with a grain of salt. I understand that we work together. And in some cases, collaboration is real. I mean, they help fund some of our regional conferences. They help sometimes fund special projects. But I also realize the fundamental thing is they sell us stuff.
Eleanor.
All right. Hello, I'm Eleanor Cook, retired academic librarian from East Carolina University. And when I was thinking about this question, it made me feel just a tad cynical at first. But I actually think that the Charleston Conference's atmosphere lends itself to true collaboration. I do realize that there is a business relationship with our partners, but that the Charleston Conference's unique atmosphere gives us a chance to be people with people. We get to know our business partners at the Charleston Conference in a way we don't necessarily get to do in some of the other venues that we engage in. So that's my take on that particular question. Thank you.
Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve Sutton. I'm with Ingram Content Group. I've been in the academic space for about 45 years, and I've been to Charleston. I think this is my 37th year. And I apologize for being tardy, but it was collaboration that made me tardy. All right, so coming from downstairs and trying to get up here, I was stopped 5 times by people wanting to talk about working with Ingram. And I said, well, I got to go talk about collaboration. And I said, you talk to me right now about this. So I think this, I've seen this change at this conference with talking about certain things, but the collaboration is really what makes it go. I'm not a librarian. I've always been on the vendor side, but I've been with 8 different companies. So I've moved around a little bit, all within this ecosystem. So I've been collaborating with a lot of people in a lot of libraries over the years, but I think that's the key to this. How this has grown has been that collaboration for all of us that are in the ecosystem. How do we make your jobs easier? We're kind of in it together. The librarians, the publishers, the vendors, we kind of all need each other. And it's that collaboration that makes this conference, I think, over the years, very special. It's focused on academic libraries, and I've also seen, through collaboration, a lot of new companies come about as well from Charleston, companies that have survived, some that haven't. New ideas. This is where that collaboration comes from. There's just so many ideas that are thrown around. So yes, collaboration, I think, is really the key to this whole conference.
And Anthony, you've always taught me to be on time, so I'm going to move on to the next question. Okay. Is Charleston a good educational experience? And if so, educational for whom? Do you think publishers and vendors, as well as librarians, learn from the meeting? And what sorts of things do they learn? And actually, Steve, I'd like to start with you on this one, because do you learn from this meeting? Has it been a learning experience? Do you see your colleagues learning, or your more junior colleagues?
Yes, all the time. And what's interesting to me, coming so often and being in the industry, is to watch those junior colleagues grow and watch them as they come here and they learn. Now, think about how this started, though. This conference was started, it's an acquisitions conference. So the people that came here were acquisitions librarians. And the reason it was started was because Katina comes out of library school, and she wasn't taught anything about acquisitions, and I think it's probably still the same. I looked this morning at USC's library school. There's nothing about how to buy stuff. So there's a lot of learning that takes place, and it was first focused on everybody sharing ideas on how to acquire content, and now it's grown to collection development. But yes, to answer your question, I think there's a lot that's learned from all sides in the ecosystem here at Charleston. It has for a long time.
Thank you. Yes, Eleanor, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I forgot to say that, yes, I've been coming to this conference since 1989, so I believe that's 34 years. Mm. So yeah, I definitely fall into the old-timer realm. And yes.
You don't look it.
Oh, well, thank you. Oh, I did not pay him to say that. Okay, yes, true educational experiences can be had here, for sure. And I do think that the conference programming does a good job of having the big picture topics in the opening sessions and the keynote sessions, and then the more nuts and bolts things happen in the pre-conferences, if there are any, and with the concurrent sessions. And personally, I've benefited greatly. I would often come to the Charleston Conference with some problem in mind, and I would seek out my colleagues and others to find out if they had a solution to that problem. And often I would go to sessions that would be hands-on in one way or another about the current problems of the day. So yes, it's definitely a true educational experience.
And George, just before you answer, I just wanted to quote a little bit from Katina's book. And this is about the very first Charleston Conference being born in 1980. And she said, most meetings had separate sessions for publishers, vendors, and librarians. And I thought that was unfortunate, since we all had similar and interconnected problems and issues that were best solved if we talked together. So very much her theme. George, how did you feel about education?
Well, when I came here, I did not come up through the collections or acquisitions pathway. I was a reference librarian, I ran a small special collection, and then on top of that, I got into library IT. So when I came first to the conference, it was education for me. Now that I'm running a consortium, as we get new collections people in or licensing librarians, we make sure to send them here. Because as Steve mentioned, they don't teach this stuff in library school. You get out and you sort of don't know anything. And this is a great way to make it real world experience. One of the things I like to do is talk about, when we talk to vendors, we always poo-poo how poor we are. I mean, but there's sometimes when it's really true, like right now. And so, how do we get past that we cry woof, woof too often? And we also like, what do we want in our products and what will we be willing to pay for? Like, do we want to pay for AI add-ons? Build it in and let us use it. But having these add-on expenses is a real killer, especially right now. So overall, as an experienced librarian, I still learn from my colleagues and from my vendor friends every day.
Anthony, I wanted to ask you, one of the things that we talked about was how there's in here publishers, vendors, librarians, but actually individuals have moved through multiple roles. Yeah. And you yourself have moved through multiple roles, haven't you?
Well, I have. I've been a librarian, but only an untrained librarian, in the sense that I was doing some menial job in a library under the control of a real librarian. But I feel it gave me some insight into the difficulties you have.
So before becoming a publisher and then becoming a consultant, I mean, this has been
I was
multiple.
I started as a researcher, and I have been a consultant in various ways. But I want to say one other thing, just if I got hold of the microphone now. I was sitting here looking at the audience, which is a high-quality audience. The person who I've missed most at this meeting not being here, and I expect you will think of Katina, but it's not Katina, it's Chuck Hammaker. Now, who remembers Chuck Hammaker? Oh, yeah. Everybody. Oh, yes. I used to enjoy meeting Chuck Hammaker because we used to disagree violently. In those days, I was but it was marvelous because. But I really miss him because my views have changed incidentally, but over the years have been ameliorated, as it were, from being a ferocious type publisher of the worst sort. But I've become recognized because of Charleston. But Chuck was wonderful. I know he's still alive. Yes. But I hope he's well, and I hope we can send our best wishes to Chuck. Can we?
And I think a model of powerful but respectful disagreement, which I think we talk a lot about at the moment. Okay, next question. Respondents have often mentioned Katina, the conference's founder, as essential to its character and success. What do you think they meant by that? And how do you think her successors can perpetuate the special qualities she brought? George, would you be willing to start on this?
Sure, I felt Katina was a true connector. She's the one who linked us all together, and especially in the early days of the conference when it was smaller, I remember her inviting me to her house and getting to see some of the body artwork from her husband, getting to talk about some of her novels. I didn't come up through collections. I didn't know anybody, and she brought us in. One of the things that I really enjoyed was that she asked me to write a piece for ATG, Against the Grain, and I'd never written, matter of fact, I'd never even read it up to that point. It was a new thing for me. So I thought that was really exciting. And her own column in ATG was a gossip column. I loved it. It was the first thing I always read because I could learn about my professional colleagues, both in the library and the publishing community. And, you know, she took great pain in asking you about your personal life and your personal things, which really made us work together well. By the way, she also didn't mince words. Sometimes it was like, oh my God, you just said that. But she said it like it was.
Can I just, Eleanor, as you take the microphone, I just wanted to say, I heard a funny thing from Liz Weiss, who had worked with Katina on this book. And just to your point about not mincing words and never being afraid to say things as they were. So Liz, when she signed off on the final proofs of this book, she had worked out how Katina would sort of pull things together. But when the book appeared, there were bits that had been put in after she'd seen it. So the very first sentence is this: my uncle, my mother's brother, was an OB-GYN, and since I wanted to switch to an IUD, he assured me that if I stopped the birth control pill for several months, I would not get pregnant. Anyway, he was wrong. In 1973, I got pregnant and my glorious son Raymond was born. So it was so funny that the proofs had been marked up by Katina afterwards, and the final book actually reflects things that Liz said, I would never have put that in. So I thought that was nice. Eleanor.
Oh yeah, I miss Katina terribly. She is truly the spirit and vision of this conference. And I truly believe that it's important that we try to hold on to that somehow. And I was having a lively conversation last night with one of the speakers from yesterday about a hot topic about how bots are attacking collections. And there's a lot of doom and gloom around that topic. And I asked him very, very pointedly, I said, what would Katina do? And I said, I'll tell you what Katina would do. She would find out who's responsible for those bots, and she would invite them to this conference. And she would ask them to talk to us about why they are sending these things out to destroy our collections and make it so that people can't access them. And we need to have a dialogue with those people so we can fix this. But at any rate, that's the kind of thing I think about with Katina is what would Katina do? And I was privileged during my career to be on the Against the Grain editorial board, and she asked me to write a column, and my column was called Drinking from the Fire Hose, which was really the overall theme of that was how to deal with the new technologies that are coming at us. So it really gave me the opportunity to keep on top of these things, and if it hadn't been for this conference, I don't think I would have done it quite nearly as well. So thanks.
Thank you.
Well, the thing that struck me about Katina is her passion for libraries, her passion for books. But I'm not sure she would say that she saw what this would become. I was telling Anthony that the real change in Charleston came when speaking at a Charleston session gave you professional development. And not only for librarians, but for vendors as well. I had to prove to somebody I was developing my profession. And that's where Charleston really exploded with conference sessions, is when it came to helping you with your professional development. You know, the thing about Katina too is she was really a book person. And I really like that about her too, as a librarian and a book person. But the thing about her is she started this because she was admitting she didn't know everything. In fact, she knew little about how to do acquisitions, and that's where it all came from. And she knew how to draw people in. George mentioned Against the Grain. If you got into the rumors column, you became famous, and I got into it a few times. You know, it was like page 6 of the New York Post. And she'd use terms like splendiferous. But she got people to write to Against the Grain, so it wasn't just people coming here to talk about issues of the day. It was much more than that. Now I wish I had kept them all. You know, I wish I had kept every single one of those, because now they're kind of lost, and it would have been great to have them in the archives. But you see the names, and you mentioned Chuck Hamaker, and then you see the people who are no longer with us too, and you see those names. It brings back so many memories. But that's what Katina brought here, was that passion for what was going on in our ecosystem, and that we could all collaborate together to make things better.
And Eleanor, I think you have a request.
Yes, I want to plug the request. If there's anybody in this room who might have not the proceedings, but the programs from earlier conferences, the booklet that you usually would get handed with your bag and your T-shirt, we're particularly looking for the ones from the 1980s and the early and mid-1990s. And if you don't have them, maybe if you know somebody who's retired recently or any, just let me know or get in touch with Charles. We are scanning them when we can find them. So thank you.
And I should note that it's always been a team effort. And Leah would say this, and I see Shana out there as well. This is a team that has been a long-term commitment as registrar. You know, this is a team effort, and that's the first thing that Katina would say, I think, in this question. Okay, so the special character, and I want to turn to you, Anthony, on this. The special character of Charleston as a city was noted by respondents as critical to the conference success. How has this manifested for you personally? And can the essence of Charleston as place translate into its international offshoots? So I want you to focus on personally what Charleston has meant to you as a foreigner.
As a foreigner, yes.
Yes.
Well, I think it's beautiful, beautiful city. It's absolutely beautiful. The buildings on the whole are beautiful. But I found the places of eating and drinking are very enjoyable on the whole. And you can find a level of place to eat and drink, in my case, drinking as much as eating, which are really remarkably good. You don't have to go to some frightful coffee bar run by some awful company whose name I won't give. But
He's been complaining about Starbucks non-stop since he arrived.
But I find that there are just a number of smaller places which are really good value often. And I find that extremely pleasing. And as I say, I think the whole city is enjoyable. I've been to most of the more touristy bits in the past, but I just love it, you know. And I'm staying in the Francis Marion at the moment, thanks to my son's kindness.
Yes.
And I love the Francis Marion. I think it's a lovely place. Yeah.
And what happens at night is Anthony goes out and starts to walk around outside and enjoy the city. So it's like, okay, George, Charleston.
Well, I was blown away. I'm a Southwest guy. I always lived in New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado. So coming here was a real wonderful shock. And, you know, I think the stability of holding it in the same place every year, it takes away a lot of stress for me. I know where I'm flying into. I know how to get places. Thank God for Uber, by the way. The taxi service used to be horrible. And, but, you know, I think that that's something that is an important part. And I noticed that other collections conferences have picked up that same theme. ERNL is always held in Austin. Timberline is always held in Oregon. So they picked up that from Katina in this conference.
I would have to agree with both George and Anthony that Charleston is a special city. It has a European flair to it. And I think that's because of its history. You know, the architecture is so old, and it just has that feel. I also think that Katina and her friends have internationalized this conference in a way that's unique to my way of thinking. And especially this year, I've noticed that there's quite a bit of diversity in the attendees from where they've come from. And the Fiesole retreats that were started with the Castellini family in Italy really got them going into an international way. And I was very fortunate to be able to participate in some of those. So I think that the international underpinnings have been there for quite some time, and they're just getting bigger now. So that's my 2 cents. Or 3.
So, because I come from the vendor side, I have a little bit of a different take on all of this. I've been fortunate enough to come here on somebody else's money, and I live in Connecticut. When first week in November it gets a little chilly up there, up north, so it's nice to come down here and be here. But I always thought about what impact this conference had on this town, because when I first started coming here, we ran out of space. There weren't enough hotel rooms, and yes, you can say Charleston's grown because of tourism, but I got to tell you, it was not the tourism you see today. And I wonder, they knew every year there was a week when there was going to be thousands of people coming here, and I could tell you right now, there were places that have outside of the city that are just going, but you wouldn't go back over there the first time that you arrived here in say, the mid-'80s, and it's just exploded. And I think this conference had a little bit to do with the growth of Charleston, just knowing that people were going to be here. And it turned out to be thousands of people is what it grew from, what, originally 200? You know, the first sessions. I don't know how many people are here this week. Quite a few.
2,000, is it right, or 1,000, Sean? About 2,000.
That's quite a few. And then now you've got also the combination of vendors, librarians, when in the beginning it was librarians. So now you have vendors involved and bringing the money in. So I think this conference had a huge impact on some of the growth of Charleston, and they can thank Katina for that. But having said that,
yeah.
Trying to move it elsewhere and having it in other places around the world is a great idea, but I don't think it'll ever match what this city brings to the conference, in my opinion, because it is such a beautiful city.
Something that Anthony and I experience when we come here with English accents is people say, well, it probably doesn't feel very old to you. But something that's been interesting, and Anthony's made this point, is that there's no city that is so solidly a 19th century city in Britain, because they've all been bombed. They were all bombed, and so they were hollowed out. So to see a complete 19th century city is very interesting. I've also found it an interesting venue because it's got such a mixed history. So last year was the first time I'd visited the International African American Museum, and to have the legacy of slavery here and to really reflect on the mixed history of our professions, of our country, etc., that added an edge to the experience of being here, which is very thought-provoking. Final question. The conference program reflects topics of current interest, and these have changed over the years. Are there consistent themes you have detected, and has the balance between foundational skills and the topic of the day been struck correctly, do you think? So let's start with Steve. Would you mind?
Well, I think this discussion's going on today with the same discussions going on when it first started. Cereal pricing is one. So speaking of Chuck Hammaker, he once tried to get everybody rounded up to cancel their Elsevier journals. I remember that. One library did, but it didn't hold. But what's happened is technology's come along. So, you know, all of these things that we're talking about today with AI, we weren't talking about that back in the day. So the discussions have changed a little bit in terms of what we're talked about, but then there are other things that are still the same. I've been involved in ebooks from the beginning. There's still conversations about problems with ebooks 20 years later. So again, you come here to try to solve the problems, but sometimes we don't. We continue to try and work them out. But at the end of the day, I think that, you know, the topic of the day's changed, and that's what makes this so important to get together, to talk about the topic of the day. AI, obviously, is probably the big one, and open access is the big one of today. Will we be talking about the same thing 5 years from now? Maybe. So.
Thank you. Eleanor.
Well, I think that, as Steve just mentioned, cereal pricing will never go away, as far as I can tell. But yes, these other topics are now the talk of the day, for sure. But I do think that the foundational skills that people need are often things that they have offerings for. I'll never forget, I did the pre-conference with Buzzy Bosch. Used to do this great pre-conference about, you know, how to negotiate, because that's a really important skill for acquisitions and collection development librarians to have, and they do not get that in library school for sure. So that was a very important one that used to be held. I'm drawing a blank now suddenly, I'm sorry.
Well, let's
Anyway,
pass to
go.
George and think,
Yes.
and I'll come back to you.
Come back.
Yeah, I mean, some of the big topics for me have been data analytics and, of course, the AI. Open access, of course, has been an evolving and changing space. It really reminds me when I first started coming to the conference, I got talked into editing something called the Charleston Advisor, which was Katina's idea, along with Becky Lenzini, to have a review source. It's now morphed into Katina Magazine. But to me, that was a huge change. And when I was asked to do that for the conference, because the web was changing things back in the early to mid-90s. And so how can we evaluate web resources? And so Katina kept up with these trends and cooked up new schemes to be able to solve it.
Eleanor, have you remembered your...
Well, I will say that one of the other things I just want to throw out there, because I think this is one of the things that makes Charleston a different sort of conference. You go to an ALA conference or one of the other divisions or any other conference, everything's so serious. And here we have a little bit of whimsy. And Katina, for whatever reason, decided that it would be a good idea for us to have these silly skits. And I ended up, for whatever reason, in charge of them. And I had no theater background whatsoever, but I just thought, okay, I'll try it out and see what happens. And we had a great deal of fun doing this. And many great memories, and we didn't get into too much trouble. And then they picked them up again a couple of years ago, and this year there's a hiatus, but we're hoping maybe in the future, maybe somebody will, be able to talk them into letting us do them again. But I did say that I would possibly come up with a guerrilla skit, meaning just have a breakout, spontaneous thing happen. But I haven't been able to pull that off, so I don't think it's going to happen. But good idea. But anyway,
One early session that I helped put together was related to, we'd written in the Charleston Advisor a review of academic press. So I'd gotten a review from a guy named Dennis Bruning at Arizona State University. And he gave sort of a more rosy view of that particular publisher and what they were doing. And Chuck Hammaker said, I'm going to rip his head off. And so we set up a debate. And Chuck was like a bulldog, but Dennis was smart. And we got up there, and he started complimenting Chuck and telling him all the good things about him. Chuck was so flustered that Dennis won the debate.
Okay, so with that, unless you're Eleanor Cook, in which case it's correct. With that, we have reached our time. Katina's last words here, where she actually has a number of predictions for the future, which you can download free of charge here. Actually, I'll just go to that slide. She says, many of you will disagree with my predictions, and that's okay. I've had a grand time watching it all, and I am confident the sky's the limit as we reimagine libraries. Thank you. So thank you to the panelists. Thank you to all the hordes of people in the auditorium here, and very select. And have a good rest of the conference, and thank you so much. Bye for now. Or download it for free, which Katina would hate, but it's good.